Welcome to another episode of Near Death to Life, Finding Your Whatchamacallit. And as you know that I've been on this journey for almost a year now, and I started a podcast around something that happened to me with taking an MRI. And the MRI, basically I coded for 10 to 12 minutes, came back, I'm here with you now, experiencing life, experiencing the world. But this podcast is really about discovering your whatchamacallit, meaning what's the thing that gets you up in the morning? What's the thing that you want to achieve? Where are some journeys that you want to take, some journeys that you might have taken? So today I'm really excited to have a companion, a colleague, a mentor, a friend, Chip McFarlane. And Chip is a MCC certified ICF coach. I met Chip through ACE Mastery Program, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And he's also a shaman, and he lives in Australia. Now, here's the really big thing. Chip and I have never physically met in a handshake form. Our whole journey has been on the screen through Zoom since 2019. And as you know, after 2019, COVID hit, and our journey continued through a program that we were involved in called ACE Mastery. So welcome, Chip. I'm really glad to have you here, and I'm really excited about our journey today.
Thanks, Jerome. I'm also really excited, and it is strange. It's really strange or usual these days, where you may know someone for an extended period of time, and where as you said, we've never physically met. We will soon. I'm sure we will. Sooner or later, it'll happen. But we've never physically met, and yet we have a very strong connection and relationship with each other over this time. So,
yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that we have in common is that we originally are both from New York.
Yes.
And somehow Chip ended up in Australia. I ended up in Los Angeles. And I'm really excited about where we're going to start. But I have a couple of questions for Chip before we start. Well,
sure.
Actually starting.
It's already begun. It's already, we're already begun.
We're already there. And that question is, tell us a little bit about the journey of you becoming a shaman, because that's a really fascinating one. You've greatly assisted me through that process. And I know the audience is really interested in this whole practice of being a shaman. And was it something you've always wanted to do? Was it something that you decided to pursue? Or when did it start? And what's the journey been like?
Jerome, that's one of those interesting questions where you think, okay, how do I answer this thing? For me, the way that I think about it is, in looking back on it, there were a whole series of events that aligned that said, okay, that's what you are doing, and this is who you are. From being very young, and in growing up in New York and Brooklyn, in the middle of where we were, always being attracted to nature. But when you're around the projects, when you're around buildings like that, there's not a lot of nature around. And yet I'd find praying mantises, grasshoppers. Every summer you have the fireflies. And nature always has been an attraction for me. Also, as it turns out, seeing a variety of things that other people didn't necessarily see. So those are some of my younger experiences. Mm-hmm. Later in life, I started traveling around the world and meeting people, and people began to describe me in a particular way that that made sense but didn't. And it wasn't until I encountered a group where I was doing psychic and spiritual development, so directly on that they gave me some feedback and showed me a picture. They said, "This is what you remind me of. This is what you," and it was there was a book by Susan Seddon-Boulay, an artist, that was entitled Shaman, and they'd taken this out and they said, "Okay, this totem, this picture is what your energy reminds us of." So I still sort of filed that away. That opportunity, that occasion of that development gave me an opportunity to do my first sweat lodge. So based on the Native American approach around sweat lodges in Australia. So there's a woman who had done some work with a Native American medicine man, had learned processes and brought it back to Australia. So I had a chance to do that. And from the first time I experienced it, I felt like I came home.
Mm.
I was in there, and that's what she had mentioned to me also. She said, your energies just filled the space. And for me, it felt as though I came home. So once again, I'm just describing little events that happened along the way.
Mhm.
From the development work that I'd done, working with energy, seeing spirits, encountering a variety of different things, my father helped to introduce me to the man who had become my brother. And
Mm.
he's a Native American, he's a Mohawk medicine man. His name is Silverhawk. And I knew that my meeting him was going to be something special. And the day that we met, as they say here in Australia, when we met each other, we got on like a house on fire. And it was really, it was really great. And probably about 15 minutes into our conversation, into our time together, he looked into my eyes, and we were laughing together, and he looked into my eyes and he said to me, you know who you are. And when he said that, suddenly a whole bunch of things pulled into places I recognized where my path was leading me to. And it had a relationship at least wrapped around it. And so, and the other thing he said to me as we got to know each other, he said, you carry many medicines. So you carry different energies, different approaches, different traditions with you, and you travel around the world. So what I found is from that meeting, which gave meaning to me in a lot of ways, I then started meeting a lot of other people in different countries. So in Japan, in China, in Central America, in the US also, in Europe, in addition to that, that the word shaman is an interesting one because it's a word of Tungus origin. So it's Siberia. So that's where and the word actually means comes from to know, and the word shaman means one who knows.
Mm.
And I think the variation there's an author David Shee who wrote Spirit Voices. I think he described it as that also the word means to heat up, because for a shaman, part of what we're doing is moving into and towards and working through altered states of consciousness and through ecstasy through drumming, rhythmic engagements, singing, toning, a variety of different ways of being able to enter into it and do stuff. So that's sort of a long way around to say, for me, there was a moment that I had an experience with someone who recognized me, who looked at me and looked into me and helped a whole bunch of things actually come together. And then from that point, then life just unfolded in a way where I met people and sat down with them and did all kinds of things. So long way around, but that's sort of there.
Yeah. So what it sounds like, Chip, is that you were pointed in a direction,
Yes.
no apparent outcome, and this journey has just continued.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. And it's something you said that made me crack up inside because I grew up in the projects in Queens,
Mm,
Redfern projects, and and you talked about nature in the projects, and I remember we had all this grass around us between the
mm,
buildings,
mm.
and there were big signs, and you would get in trouble by the project police if you were on the grass.
Don't
The
walk.
sign,
Stay away from nature. Keep off the
yeah,
grass.
and how absurd was that?
Yes.
When you mentioned it, it made me think about, and we would always get on the grass,
Mm.
looking out for the New York, for the Housing Authority police. They give you a little title, a little ticket. They give you like a $2 ticket and charge it to your rent, or
Mm.
something like that.
Oh.
You got caught.
Mm.
So
Mm. Mm.
we were always playing on the grass, and then here they come. We run off. Just triggered that memory,
Mm.
and we used to chase at night. We would chase in the summertime fireflies,
Mm.
and then also bees. And you
Mm. Mm. Yes.
put little holes in, and you put them upstairs. So and you take them up to your apartment, and you have these bees flying around or fireflies. So that was a really good memory. I
Mm,
appreciate that.
mm,
Uh, Tell me a little bit more about. You mentioned two people that I want to get the audience
mm.
to have a little bit more reference to. Your Indian brother, what was his name again?
His name was Silverhawk.
Silverhawk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
David wrote in Spirit Voices around the idea of what makes a shaman and how different spiritual traditions have a similar or a type of role within it.
Hmm.
Although today it's a general catch-all term for a variety of different relationships, but he has a very specific way of thinking about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm,
So I'd like to talk to shift gears a little bit
mm,
and talk about my relationship with my near-death experience and something that you pointed out to me
mm,
a few months back about I was in this place called the Void,
mm,
and I was not aware of that. I just knew I went someplace. I didn't know. I didn't have the traditional the light visiting people, but I had been having those opportunities consistently afterwards, where I'm visiting relatives that passed or people that have moved on. So it's very interesting. But can you share a little bit more about the void and specifically what you expressed to me a couple of weeks ago that it's different for each person. It's not one void fits all.
mm,
It's very individual.
mm. This is the it's that's a an interesting question that's really, really big in some ways. So when you had your experience, at times when we're working, when we're talking and someone is talking to me, I can uh see what they're experiencing or what they experienced and to get an understanding of it. And I recognized where you were actually because it's some place that I have been before. And so as you described that, oh, that yes, yes, yes. So the void, the way that I interpret it, is that it is some people when they arrive there because it is as you experience it's black. They think that there's nothing there. Where what I understand and my experience of is that there's all possibilities, all potentials are actually there. And so as different people encounter, so that's just one place, but just think of it as a place of all potential, all possibility, all things. So, and from that, then a whole bunch of things can pop out from there. That's the way that I like to think about it. There's your personal experience. So you went through the coding, you went through that whole experience and it's almost like being in a house and you stepped outside of your house.
Mm-hmm.
Now you stepped outside the house and you saw that there was something bigger out there and you experienced that. Then you chose to come back and you stepped back in and then you began living in a particular way. Now that shook up a lot of things for you. Because as in life, just in going through life, we typically learn culturally what is right, what is appropriate through various religious structures. Could be this religion, that religion. You have structures around you, living around you. We go into business, we live in life, and everything solidifies in terms of our view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we will go through an experience that needs to, that forces us to break that up, to be able to experience life and experience the world differently. Otherwise, we get very heavy. Our lives can become very heavy. And so by breaking that up, then suddenly we realize, well, there's more to this game. There are more windows in my house. There are rooms that I haven't even been in. So partially what you're describing also is that you're now visiting rooms that you didn't really realize you had in your house. You haven't left your house again.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're just exploring more rooms in that house. And oh, this window shows me that out there, and this window shows me something different. So you're learning more of your house right now.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So what I hear in that is, and what you brought to my awareness is that for our listening audience and viewing audience, you don't have to have a near-death experience to visit the void. Is that correct?
The void itself, to leave, think of it this way, to leave your house,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to have a near-death experience. There are ways of getting there. It's not it's complex in terms of getting there. What you and sometimes I've heard in conversations with people what they have right now, what you're having right now, more often though, is um, an altered consciousness. So altered states of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not revisiting the void necessarily because you're not stepping outside the house anymore. But
Right.
that gave you, so now you're more aware of altered states of consciousness where, oh, now you're aware of this and this is open. And as you mentioned, often it affected how you approach your golf game.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was going to be my next transition because just yesterday I was playing and I was having a tough, I had a tough couple of days, a couple of things, a couple of decisions that my wife and I have to make. And I was kind of stressed out. I wasn't feeling well. And I initially was not going to go golf. So I reached out to my group, said, hey, find a replacement for me. I'm busy. And then I heard a voice say, no, 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 no. You need to get out of the house. You need to go golf and not worry about score or anything. You just need to be out there in nature, on the grass, playing. As I reached a particular hole, the seventh hole, this is a 9-hole course by the house, I had this moment of just at an 18-foot putt for birdie. And up until that point, I had not won any skin. For people who don't know golf, skins is when you have a competition and you can win a certain amount of bucks for per hole if you win the hole. So I was shut out to that point. And I got to this hole, the seventh hole, and I saw this as clear. You're going to make this 18-foot birdie putt. And I lined up, and I don't practice my putting stroke. I just line up, visualize it, and putt. It was the most purest putt I've had in my life. It just never left this line and it went into the hole. Birdie. So I experienced that coming out of my near-death experience, my whole game, my whole visualization of the game, what I see and how I see the game has changed dramatically. Where Ram Dass he talked about his experience as a golfer. And he realized that he wasn't a golfer, he went golfing. And it was a deep difference in the two. And when I heard Ram Dass talk about that, I go, he's right. If I don't see myself as a golfer, then when I make a mistake or when I hit it in the trees, I'm just golfing. So what's going to happen next? It kicked into my curiosity, which is one of the things I talk to a lot of my clients about is how curious are you in exploring the fact that your organization or your company are in the trees right now and you don't know how to get out. Because that whole experience is uniquely different than being in the fairway. Ron Dass talks about golfing as an activity of insight, awareness, and what do you notice about yourself? So as you hear that, Chip, what's your response to that? What do you sense?
A couple of things, Rana. One is what you and from that quote with Ram Dass, what you've done is you changed from a noun to a verb.
Mm.
Okay, so, because now it's no longer something solid, it's a process. And when you went into process, then there's a different focus around it. So now you're in process around it, think, okay, I'm golfing, as opposed to I'm a golfer. And now you've got I'm golfing. And so that transition just changes the whole perception around it, around what you're doing. So now I'm doing stuff. Now I'm actually doing stuff. And I'm engaged in this, but so I'm no longer this, but I'm that. And that's also, so in shifting your consciousness, it allowed you to move around. Now, the big piece for me was just at the beginning where you actually followed your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
You followed that voice,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the source of the voice was. You followed that voice, and it was something that was important for you. So you actually paid attention to it sooner rather than later, rather than damp it down, push it away, suppress it, and then just keep battling through whatever you were doing. You paid attention to that. And so the experience around it, what you gained from it, you learned by trusting that. So there are things like that that happen to us a lot in business, in life, where we get small inklings, we get small intuitive pushes. Sometimes a voice says, "Hey, this will be interesting for you." And our ability to take action on that, to trust it, act upon it, and get a sense of, where did that lead me? Where did that lead me? It actually led me to something that was this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can trust that a bit more. I can trust
Yeah.
that. So it's also learning and playing with that.
Yeah. I like what you said about intuition, because one of the things about intuition, I learned that I used to think that intuition just came out of the sky, that it's just, oh, intuition.
Hmm.
What I've learned over the last decade, I would say, is that intuition is a collection of experiences that allows you to tap in and go, oh, I've been here before. And what did I do then? Oh, I did
Hmm.
this. That's what I need to do now. So that yesterday, when I was feeling uneasy, like, feeling a little bit down, I just said, oh, I'm just going to stay in the house and mope. And then this voice said, no, no, no. Remember, you've been here before, and what worked. I went all the way back to some of my best performances in track, where when I wasn't feeling optimal, but I wasn't feeling the best. I said, oh, that's one of these moments again. I'm just going to go golf. Not as a golfer, as you said, not as a noun, but as an active verb.
Hmm.
And I had a great time, and my mood totally shifted. And it's so important to understand the importance of movement
Hmm.
and then taking notice of what's occurring. So as I was golfing, I was noticing that my energy was shifting, that I was feeling more uplifted, I was feeling more positive and more hopeful.
Hmm.
And if I just would have stayed in the funk that I was in, I just would have had a funky day.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and from my perspective, then, Jerome, there's a thing that as I listen to you, there's the aspect of in business for us, what is now talking about intuition, what is now acceptable to talk about because there's been neuroscience research on it, there's been this and that, it's okay. There's still a step beyond that where I'd say that voice that you heard wasn't necessarily yours because around you there are also from that experience that you had before you're also aware more of from my perspective from what I see that there are beings around you
Mm.
that also communicate with you. And sometimes, and as I just whisper into, so it's not necessarily simply only life experiences, but yes, our brains, as I say, in neuroscience, where we predict the future based on our past experiences. So this is an accumulation of things, and yet outside of that, there's a bigger life. So yes, there are other things that sometimes come into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you pointed out the importance of paying attention,
Hmm.
like what really matters, and then where do you put your attention?
Hmm.
And as we talk to our different clients and organizations, executives, we always ask them, what really matters? What are your challenges? And where are you going to put your attention? So for me yesterday, what really mattered was I needed to get out of the funk that I was in.
Hmm.
And I put my attention in, well, how was I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to get active and go do something that I love. And my trainer, who's an amazing guy, I'm going to do a podcast with him in a few weeks. He says that I've had several different medical issues. I had the near-death experience. I've had vertigo. And I said to him, I said, Eric, this is weird, but even when I'm not feeling my best, I go golf and my golf game is better. And he said something that really was profound to me. He said, when you love something, you will develop, you will master the energy to go do it. And I said, wow, that's really accurate. Yeah, yeah. So you've been watching Full Swing. What it's, it surprised me when you told me that because that's what I do. That's my thing. But I said, wow, Chip's watching Full Swing. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I found that it actually began with Drive to Survive around Formula One, and
Right.
enjoying the documentary format of
Mm-hmm.
how they trace the progression of a group of people through an experience. And so when Full Swing came up, I looked at that and I thought, oh, this would be interesting. And my wife and I started watching it, and just their ability to highlight different people and their human experiences of the highs, the lows,
Mm-hmm.
of the discipline, and that is golf. And so it's wonderful getting a chance to see and understand and get a window to this, because it's actually golfing for me is an interesting thing, but it wasn't until really spending time with you, and then
Mm-hmm.
more recently as a result of the experience that you've gone through and then how that's shown up in your golf game, that when that came up, I thought, oh, this is interesting, and there are 3 seasons of it. So kind of go through a few days to go through one, and a few days to go through the other, and so it's been interesting watching that progression of and those experiences in full swing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's golf. The metaphor for golf is a metaphor for life. And people dismiss that, but it truly is because it brings out all the different aspects of who we are. It challenges your honesty, it challenges your genuineness, it challenges your ability to deal with adversity. So a few weeks ago, I was my ball went into the trees and I hit a shot out of the trees onto the green. And one of the guys I was golfing with says, man, how did you do that? I go, oh, I've been in the trees over 32 years. I've been in the trees at least 3,000 times. So, so one of the things that I practice is how exploratory. I get very curious about, well, if I hit this shot, I wonder what will happen. So that's the difference between the verb golfing and the noun being a golfer. Because a golfer will say, well, I don't want to hit a tree again. But when you're golfing, you go, oh, let's see what happens. And that's been my experience with golf. It's like, let's see what happens. If I hit this shot, let's see what happens. So one of the things that I've gotten out of golf has that singular process of exploration, discovery, practice, awareness, insight, and accountability are some of the things that come. And that's why I think it's also a great tool for experiencing another person's personality in some ways and how they deal with certain things. Ron Dodge talked about he was golfing with a guy one day, and the guy was hitting his clubs. He was knocking them on the ground. He was kicking the ball. He was angry. So Ron said he went up to him and says, "Hey, are you enjoying yourself?" The guy said, "Hell yeah." He goes, "Okay, carry on, carry on."
As long as you're having fun, that's all that matters.
Exactly. And so his whole perspective on that was we try to pigeonhole people and saying fun looks like this. So if you're not like me, you can't be having fun. And Ron is out there just in a very peaceful place, and this guy's out there in a very what would appear to be violent place, but he said he was having fun. So that's all Ron was cared about. Was you're having fun? I'm having fun. Let's have fun.
I like that the when you also brought up around curiosity being the thing that guided you through the experience, and through those experiences that maintaining your curiosity, and that for me also shows up in you creating something like this podcast. What also takes you that I've noticed in terms of your coaching and engaging people is a curiosity from having an initial experience or an initial understanding of something, curiously of what if or what about how. And that's been something that I've also enjoyed in working with you, Jerome, that, yeah, so the curiosity piece that really, really, as a quality or characteristic, stands out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's being curious. I'm always very curious on what will, if we try this, what will happen? Let's explore this, or let's play with this.
Hmm.
So, and you're a good partner in that process, because one of the things that I found with you is that you pull that out of me. Like, okay, you're curious? Let's go deeper. You're curious? Let's go deeper. Let's drill down. Let's find out where this curiosity takes us. And not a lot of people are, I think in business, if leaders would be more curious and they would allow their people to be curious, there would be some changes. Like right now, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies are struggling with the dynamic, particularly in the US, on how to deal with the current administration. But no one's being really curious about, okay, this is different. What am I noticing? What can we do? A lot of people are being constricting themselves.
Yes.
They're shutting things down versus opening up and exploring what could happen new. So that's what I love about golf and golfing versus being a golfer. You're exploring something new. If I take this shot, what's going to be the outcome?
Really? So let's try that then. Let's actually do something with that, because a little bit earlier you mentioned about some things that you're reflecting on that's happening around you that you were in that funk about that you went at. So would you feel open to exploring a piece in there?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So Gail and I have to move by May 17th. So we've been exploring where we're going to move. A part of me, well, not a part, a large part of me wants to move out into the world, just pack a bag and just travel the world and figure out where am I being called? Where am I being pulled to? And Gail is right now still feeling very connected to Los Angeles. And from a business perspective and a personal perspective, her community she's got a dance community. She's got people that she's connected to. I, on the other hand, don't have really any strong like connections other than my trainer, Eric, and my golf buddies. And what's great about golf is that you go to a new place and you get new buddies. And a lot of my friends are people like you in Australia, people back east. So I'm struggling with, I feel like I'm curious because I feel this voice inside of me saying, it's time to go explore the world. On one hand. On another hand, I'm saying, how do I do that? So I'm really stuck where the voice that I'm hearing, and then what to do about it. I'm very curious on, is it time for me to just, like Gail said, well, maybe it's time for you to just go pack. We get two different places. You go live one place, and we just exchange. So just struggling with that whole process.
Mm-hmm. So when you just step back from it for a moment, then Jerome, and consider your body, actually just your body, when you feel the call to do something else, where do you experience that?
Probably in my heart.
And what does, and that sensation in your heart, what kind of sensation is that?
Both curious and fear.
So what do you notice as you're doing that then, in terms of which feels appropriate for where you are right now?
Where I'm at right now, it feels like I'm in a holding pattern that I know that's the journey that I'm to take. I'm hearing I may be a year away or 6 months away from taking that journey. So the clarity of that out there for me to explore brings us a certain level of peace and calm. And I can breathe a little deeper with that awareness that, okay, that's the direction. It just may not be the direction at this moment.
So now you're actually introducing a measure of time into it. So appropriateness at different stages, because fear is an important experience for us to have because it gives us perspective on what's going on, what we're experiencing, what we're living through. So it's not a bad thing. It's a useful thing to act as sometimes a check every once in a while. Now, when it overwhelms us, though, that's when it sometimes is less than useful, especially if we get stuck in that space. So when you reflect on everyone around you that'll be directly affected by your decision, then what are your thoughts or your insights about that?
Can you say that in a different way?
Sure. It's not only about you, it's also those whose lives you touch.
Exactly.
And you're about to make an interesting decision around your future. And so when you consider that, then what are some of the first thoughts or feelings that come up as a result of that?
That's a really great question because I had that conversation with Gail today. And I said to her, I said, hey, I had this awareness. I was in the kitchen making some breakfast, and I had this awareness that that my void, or the other places, the home that I'm looking for is out there. It's not necessarily in LA. But because of that, I'm not the person that needs to make the decision for now. I think you need to make the decision for now. I will honor that decision because I'm so out of focus that I just think let's find the place that you're going to feel the most fulfilled and the most happy in now, and we can deal with my process later.
Okay. Interesting, because when you add in time in there, then there are different stages that different things are important. And yet with anything, anticipating as an agile, when you think in terms of the agile environment in business, anticipating the transition of what's coming ahead is important. So not just recognizing what's needed now, but also there's something ahead and how do we transition through that? So in terms of transitions, then I'd say that a place that I would encourage you to explore further, to be honest, because our time is short and we've got this is going to come to an end sooner or later. But I'd just encourage in terms of the transition. Okay, so if we would look at that, what does that mean? And then there's the we. So it's not you, it's not Gail, it's not just two separate entities. There is in your relationship, there's a we. So how do you explore the we part of that?
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that's the part that I am working through now. And there's something that you said. So if I look at what is important for me right in the moment is further exploring podcasts and this podcast, a couple of ideas that I have around coaching and AI and how to help people in coaching to use AI, use me and AI, and how to prompt and teaching them how to prompt and get questions answered on the fly, things like that. So for me, it's just finding a space that I will have the room and the opportunity to go into this in a deeper way.
To what you just said. So when you reflect on the feeling inside you to what you just said, how aligned are those things?
How aligned is it with Gail, or how aligned is it with me?
Just with you for the moment. With you for the moment.
Okay. Can you ask, when you say aligned, how give me a little bit more.
Okay, so there's what you said, which comes out of your thoughts, and then there's what your body was feeling before. Okay. And when you say that, when you feel, let's say if you feel into what you just said, which was a thought, how does your body feel behind that?
Oh, it feels great. It feels great. It feels like encouraging. It feels excited. It feels energized. There's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I forget the author right now.
Robert Kiyosaki, yes.
Yeah. And he talks about emotion. And he says that emotion is energy in motion. And so that's what I feel. So when I have that emotions, I
mm,
feel energy in motion.
mm,
And so that's what I feel. That's the
mm,
alignment.
mm,
And where I go off sometimes is I get into, and I work with my clients on this whole concept of NATO, not
mm,
attached to the outcome. And that's how I golf. I don't
mm,
really, when I'm golfing, I'm not really focusing on what the result is going to be. I'm really approaching more of just the swing itself.
mm,
And the result will be the result. And sometimes I have no control. Sometimes I can hit a really great shot, and the way it hits the ground or it hits the green, it could bounce anyway. It
mm,
has something
mm,
to do with the execution.
mm,
So when I'm in NATO, I'm then allowing myself to not get stuck and with the outcome.
mm,
When I'm not in NATO, I get stuck on, well, what if this doesn't work, or
mm.
what if this idea doesn't work? And
Yes.
when it does, and I think the listeners and people who are watching this have this experience, what happens is you freeze.
Mm,
It's like the Zoom freezes, you
mm, mm,
freeze, and then nothing gets done.
mm,
Right?
mm,
Because as you said earlier, which I love the concept, you become a noun versus a verb.
mm.
So the noun, well, I'm a podcaster, but what if I'm not a podcaster?
So we're in the midst of podcasting. So when that idea of there's an intention that you have, because you mentioned the word before around intention,
Mhm.
and brought that into, so the intention that you have on two sides, I'd say will be important. One, what is your intention in terms of the outcome that you're seeking? But
Mhm.
also, not but also, and also, what is your intention for your relationship?
Mhm. 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 Yeah.
Because each of those will be part of that overall picture. So there's an intention for each of them. And for me, often what I find is that when I pay attention to my intention for the relationship, then the words come, the actions come, because I know where north is. And I don't focus on trying to get north. That'll get there. We're going to get there. And yet, when I focus on what was my intention or what is my intention for the relationship, it makes an incredible difference for how we get north.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great piece. That's great insight. And that's what I'm exploring right now is what's the intention for the relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
great. So Chip, this is an opportunity for you to share with the audience how to get in touch with you. What are you doing? What's what are you doing? I'm curious on what you're doing that's new.
So, some very interesting things. I am exploring, looking at different leadership qualities. So, I'm actually thinking in terms of Jungian archetypes. So, it's just jumping out into archetypes, which is sort of like characters that we find in common stories, like the mentor or the coach or the hero or the heroine. Those are archetypes of particular qualities and characteristics. Um, and how that fits in leadership, because we talk about the need for leaders working in complex, adaptive environments. So,
Mhm.
how does your leadership continue to move through cycles
Mhm.
rather than being stuck as you're saying, the noun, I'm this type of leader, I'm this type of leader, and this type of leader, because the seasons change. And if you don't change to what the season requires, then what you find is that you become a bottleneck, you become an inhibitor to growth. And so that's what I'm exploring right now is looking at, okay, so how do we move more adaptively in terms of our leadership from one stage to another? That's one thing. On the other side, there are a few people who've asked me to do some trips with them. So I'm planning a trip. I did a trip with a group to Mongolia, and we did a
Mhm.
10-day horse trek across Mongolia before,
Ah,
and which was wonderful. And met up with a brother of mine there, a shaman in Mongolia, and did some ceremonies with him. Spent some time there. So it was wonderful traveling across Mongolia. And so there's some people who've asked me to do something very similar to that, and so we're looking at different ways of being able to approach that. So that's the next thing that's sort of up right now on that side of life, and that's that shamanic expression of my life is something that is being much more prominent and upfront. Done the business stuff, and now I'm sort of bringing those two things in together much more explicitly. So yes, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So how do people get in touch with you?
They can contact it if I do emails. I have a website, but that's sort of over. I have to get back in or do something with that. But they can contact me usually at hello@chipmcfarlane.com. And yeah, it's hello@chipmcfarlane.com. And they'll be able to contact me through there.
Great. And well, there's another piece that we left out about you, the uniqueness of what makes Chip Chip is just tell me a little bit briefly about your military experience, because that's something that we didn't hit upon, but I'm fascinated by it. There's so many different dimensions to who you are.
Yes. It was for a short period of time, and we will have to do that on another occasion. There's more to that, but just say that spent a little bit of time in the military through being honored in being a midshipman at the United States Naval Academy, and being in Annapolis showed me a lot of things around leadership, around approaches to life, and around discipline. A variety of different things that I learned through being there. So yeah, it's a whole another conversation. But yes, yeah.
Yeah, we have to do that in our next one. We have to do that.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and as always, I love your laugh. It's full. It has a lot of life to it. It has a lot of zest to it, and it's engaging. It connects to the heart. I really appreciate that about you, and I really appreciate this journey that we've been on since 2019 through Zoom.
To meet up soon. To meet up soon. We will meet up. We will meet up.
We will, and I want to go on one of those trips.
We'll talk further about that. We'll talk further. Okay. Jerome, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure getting a chance to hang out with you in this space.
Yeah, and again, another episode of Near Death to Life, finding your whatchamacallit. And I must say that Chip has one of the premier people in assisting you to find your whatchamacallit. And I can be reached at JeromeGreenCoaching.com. I'm on LinkedIn. And our episodes, as you go to YouTube, JeromeGreenCoaching.com. I'm also on Spotify and Apple. So, hey, have a great day. Have a great life. And most of all, continue to be curious.
Be curious. Yes, I like that one. I like that one. Be curious, everyone. Take care.
Okay. Bye. Thanks for watching the podcast, taking the time out of your day to do that. Please drop your comments, what you liked or disliked, or if you have a different viewpoint. I really look forward to seeing those comments, and I will get back to you. And take time, if you can, to subscribe to my channel, Near Death to Life. Have a great day.